Hey, everybody around here. Thanks a lot for joining me on day number 4 and the last session of the day, which is going to be with Manny Faja, who is the CEO of Bloo, which is a project management tool. Now, I am going to take care of some housekeeping. I'm just waiting for Manny. I think we're having a little bit of connectivity issues. So until I know nobody's here, I just want to take care of a few housekeeping issues and tell you a little bit about Bloo as well. So first of all, in terms of housekeeping, and this is important for me to share. So it is now the 21st of September, and on the 1st of October, I am basically going to officially have my prices for my tech support membership up, which means right now it is $55 per month. It is going to be $99 a month. There are reasons why I'm raising the price so much because it's quite a big jump. There are various features that I've been adding along the way to really make this membership valuable and that people are truly supported with the tech, because it's truly impossible for me to serve. I mean, I'd love to have thousands and thousands of people on my membership, and it is absolutely impossible to do it as a one-man show. So I had to confront the fact a few months ago that I have to hire. So I started hiring people. I've got tech support people. I've got 2 tech support. I've got 3 video editors. I've got 2 graphic designers. I've got another tech support in training. So there's a lot of overheads coming with that, which simply means that I have to raise the prices. There is that aspect. But at the same time, I also do have the numbers right now to cover those costs. But in order to truly scale, there has to be that aspect. But I really wanted to also, those that are following me, I've got, at the time of recording, the time of streaming, I've got 4,000 people on my email list, right? So there is plenty of people there who could take advantage of this offer and join while it's still at the price of 55. And I'm really hoping to give people enough information to make a decision to decide if it is right for them, so I can help them with the tech struggles and you can get in at a really good rate. Now, in the next few days, when the dust settles on the summit, I am going to host a training webinar where I'm going to cover that aspect. Number one, like obviously selling my membership, but if you've been following me for a while, you know that I absolutely hate the traditional webinars where you do this whole stack of things you're going to sell and how much they're valued and all that stuff. Like, I get it. That's what converts. I'd love to just teach you kind of my philosophy, and we can basically work together to get things built. Yeah, and give you the value, basically. So you can come out of the webinar feeling that you've actually gotten the value of what you need to be able to do things on your own. But if you want to partner with me and work with me, then we can do that as well. So give me 1 second. So that's kind of the aspect of what I wanted to go over. So the webinar will not be just like, okay, here's what I'm selling and here's a pitch. It will be like training about, basically, let's put it that way. I want to share with you kind of my philosophy on how I work. And then if that resonates with you, then it would make sense for you to join the membership. And if it doesn't quite resonate with you, then of course it doesn't, right? So anyway, there'll be in the next few days, I will definitely announce that. I'm gonna fly out tomorrow. Obviously tomorrow's the last day, and then I'm flying out overseas. So I'll need a couple of days to settle. I'll then prepare my slides and I'll schedule the webinar. I'm expecting it to be probably this 26th or the 27th of September. So you can kind of expect that. Again, the price is $55 a month. And I can tell you right now, I'll probably do a $1 trial. So you can pay $1, get in, test everything out, see if you like it. And if you don't, you can cancel. And if you do, then you'll be charged $55, within a week or 2 weeks or whatever I decide the trial is going to be. So that's just a little bit of prediction for you. I'll make it really easy for you to at least test the waters and see if you like it, and give you that option. So that's really important housekeeping. And if you know somebody, if you already are in the membership listening to this, you want to join, or you know somebody who might benefit from this, there is going to be an affiliate link. So I will share it all in the email as well. I'll do a big FAQ thing about that, so you'll have all the details. In terms of this summit, the replays are available for 24 hours, so you can have access to that. You get all that's available. And for those that have paid for an all access pass, paid for a VIP, my members, once these videos are like, once we're all done, my video, my virtual assistant team is already downloaded the videos. They're going to start basically watching them and getting things set up in terms of the content that was promised, in terms of having chapters for each video, in terms of a transcription. And also there's going to be a private podcast. So if you want to listen to content, you can do that as well. I know some people are always on the go. So there's going to be a podcast feed as well for the different speakers and so on. Additionally is, because I know there's a lot of value from the summit in terms of getting your lead magnet reviews and your landing page reviews. Who had their lead magnet or landing page or sales page reviewed? Could you leave a comment just so I know if you're here? I'd love to know that you're here and what you thought of that, because from the feedback I received, there was a lot of really good feedback on it. And I really want to make it a permanent feature in the membership, right? So I've already reached out to Elena, Kim, and Beth, and I said, give me a price, okay? What's it gonna cost me to have you in my membership once a month or twice a month or once every 2 months or whatever, to be able to review people's landing pages or sales pages or whatever, to do that as part of the membership, because that's something that I definitely want to add. I feel that added a lot of value, and I'm really hoping to make this a permanent thing. So if this is something that people are going to benefit from, I will definitely include it. And again, this brings me back to why the price is going up. Like, I could do a cheap membership for $5, $10, $20, whatever, but there's only so much I could give for a certain amount of price, right? But also, I know there's so much things that we need to support you with, right? To be able to really make progress. And anyway, that's just something that I feel is just going to be the better way to go. So great to hear that people had a lot of value from that. There was probably a couple of people that I missed in terms of the reviews. I'll obviously try to cover that in another time, but anyway, we covered as much as we possibly could. So then, with regards to the replays and all that, I mean, you can expect the replays, the chapters, the transcription, all that. It will be a couple of weeks before all that's done, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks, they will all be completed, and we'll be able to release it to you, and you'll have access to the recordings and all that stuff. So that's going to be really helpful. The other housekeeping issue I want to cover is the networking event. So tomorrow we have a networking event, which simply means, okay, so let me just talk about client acquisition, okay? I sent an email probably 5 days ago, to pretty much anybody that subscribed to the summit. And I asked people, tell me your biggest challenge. And I can tell you that probably 80% of the responses was finding customers, okay? So let me just tell you something. I can tell you the science, you could say, or the philosophy of getting clients online, especially as a coach, course creator, service provider, membership sign owner. You got to get in front of other people's audiences. What it means is that you need to find somebody that has already worked hard to build an audience, and you got to get in front of their audience. That's what you need to do. That's how I get my customers, okay? So if I want to make money and find customers and sell, I go to a Facebook group that somebody's already built, and I engage and I add value there. I don't sell, I just add value. And as a response to me adding value genuinely, not just going and pitching, just adding value, what happens is things reciprocated, and I receive people coming to me to connect with me. There's a whole tech side of how to set it up, how to set up your banner, what to say. There's a copywriting aspect, there's the text-based aspect. There's a lot of things like that comes into play, which I cover in greater details in my course, Facebook Organic Mini Course, and my client acquisition course. But what I've just told you, that is the process. It's nothing more complicated than that. Now, I'm telling you this because when I say we have a networking event, this event is not really for me. It's for you, because I have spent thousands of dollars to get people to the summit in terms of my Facebook ads, and also in terms of maybe spending money on videos to be able to promote it, and spending time on partnerships, and spend time on building relationships with the different speakers to be able to have them promote this summit. So I've got thousands of people that I've kind of nurtured, right? And I'm saying, come to a networking event for you to meet a few of these, okay? So this is your chance to come and make connections and potentially find customers. So when I say come to a networking event, it's not because I'm like, come because I want to make you get it all, warm and fuzzy. Like, I want you to come make connections and, grow your business. This is the best way I can do to literally give you potential customers on a silver platter. So that's tomorrow at 12 noon. We'll have the superstar Bonnie Chan, who will be organizing this event, hosting this event. She does a great job, and she'll be running it tomorrow at 12 noon. After that, we will do a session with Megan. Megan is going to basically go through my Facebook ad account and critique it, basically. So that's going to be fun. And if you have got questions about Facebook advertising or Instagram paid advertising, then please bring your questions. That session is going to cover anything to do with that. The last thing is at 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. We're going to do the magic show with Jackson Aces. And I need to basically, after this session is over, I'm going to be sending out the email with what to expect tomorrow. So you'll get a Zoom link for the networking event. You'll get a Zoom link for the magic show. And yeah, that's what you're going to get on the email. So please make sure that you do open the email. You do keep an eye on it. I will have the different links updated for the Summit Hub and all that to make sure you have easy access. Yeah, anyway, that's really, really important because I really want to make sure there's going to be a lot of people networking event. And the magic show, I mean, it's so funny because I had a few people originally tell me, it's a bit unprofessional that I have a magic show. And you know what? I don't care. I think it's freaking awesome that I'm having a magic show because I don't know anyone else that does a magic show virtually like this. And I think it's just a fun little thing to, what's the word? I don't know if it's a real word. Humanize the whole experience. Like, I'm so business focused, and you know me, I'm that's what I do, right? But I think adding that element of entertainment to the summit, I just think it's really important to also balance it a little bit, right? So I know that you guys are going to love it. I know that your families are going to love it. So bring your kids or grandkids or dad or mom or aunt or auntie or nieces or whatever. Bring your neighbors. I don't care. I'd love to have a lot of people there. It's going to be really awesome. So there you go. If you're just joining us, unfortunately, I have connectivity issues with Manny. He's in Cambodia and we've got some issues with connecting. So unfortunately, I don't know that the connection is good enough to really do that. So we've got two options. I'd love to, we can either reschedule Manny to a different day. That's option number one. Alternatively, if you're interested, I can actually give you a little tour behind the scene because I know people are really interested in the project management side of things. And I'm happy to just show you my project management of Bloo and how I organize that and give you a bit of behind the scene and do a bit of Q&A myself. If that's of interest to you, leave a comment right now in the chat, just so I know, because I'm happy to show you behind the scene how I run my 7 VAs, how I hire them, where I hire them from, how I filter them, how I train them, all that stuff. I'm happy to do a training session on that topic specifically. So if that's of interest to you, then leave a comment right now, because I don't want to keep you here if we're having connectivity issues. I'm just getting a chat. Yeah, unfortunately, he's just been traveling, and yeah, let's just say hotel Wi-Fi is sometimes not the greatest for live videos. So let me know which way we want to go, basically. But that's pretty much my housekeeping. So just to recap, membership, price going up. Be aware of that if you're not in membership already. Number two, all access / VIPs. Expect all the content next couple of weeks. Number three, yeah, I'll show you how to use Bloo. Number three, what was number three? Networking event tomorrow. Number four, magic show. Okay, so that's that. And then after the magic show, there's not going to be a co-working or anything. The magic show is literally the after party, like that. That's the end of the summit, basically. And yeah, so there you go. Okay, let me just read some of the comments. Okay, first of all, let me just say hi to everybody that are here. So Hillary, what a summit, so many amazing speakers, easy to implement solution, now get to work. Absolutely. I need a project management help for sure. Absolutely. Hi, Lisa, great to see you. Thanks for your engagement and so on. I really appreciate it. Dimitra, so much value this summit. Amazing. I appreciate that. Amy, I love a simple system to create my schedule and project management. Awesome. Cheryl, you got your review. Yes, that was amazing. That's awesome. You got a review. Awesome. Super helpful, worth double the price. Great to hear. Amy had her page review, found valuable. RS strategies. Remy, awesome. Cheers to that. Yep, awesome. Remy, great to meet you today. Fantastic. Lisa had her site review. It was great. Awesome. Bonnie Chan, superstar networker. Absolutely. Yes, Bonnie. A lot of love for Bonnie. I'm still trying to figure out how Jackson knew my card. Listen, I did a video with Jackson one time when I still worked in the 9 to 5. He actually invited me to record him doing a session, like an event. It was like a 4-hour event. So I'm following him around with a freaking camera, 4 hours. And he does the same trick to the same group, to different groups of people, right? There was hundreds of people there. And I'm just videoing the whole way through. I swear I saw the same trick 10 times over. I still can't figure out how he does it. So good luck. He's incredible. Hashtag differentiator. Yes. I love tours. Awesome. We'll do that. Sure. Sounds good. Yep. Appreciate. Yep. I'll definitely show you. Would love behind the scene in the meantime. Your experience with VAs before Bloo would be interesting. We'd like to be sure we can get the session with him another time. Yeah, absolutely. You as well. Joe is here and says hi. Hi, Joe. Good to know that you're there. Awesome. Had my lead pages reviewed. Amazingly helpful. Awesome. Okay. So let's talk about, and before I even touch Bloo and touch how to manage VAs, let's talk about the first step. This is going to be like freestyle VA training from Rambukai, okay? So bear with me as I'm freestyling here. First step, do you even need a virtual assistant? Let me tell you the answer to that. The answer is categorically yes. Every single person that is here needs to hire a virtual assistant. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. It doesn't mean that you're going to hire somebody permanently. It means that you should hire somebody for one task, just to learn that the possibility is there, purely to know what it is, okay? It's a little bit like just having the awareness that, oh my God, I can actually pay somebody to do something that I don't have to do. Purely for that experience, that alone, if you've never hired a VA, that alone will be life-changing for you, okay? Now, here's how you do it. This is how I do it. It is really simple. So the first step you want to do is you want to open up a Google Doc. You all know I'm a Google Doc fanatic, and that's how I organize everything. Open up a Google Doc and type up the things that you want to outsource, the things that you are like the wish list. Here's all the things you want to get rid of and actually outsource, okay? Make a list. Now, by the way, if after this session you're going to take action, which I hope you are, share with me the list. I'd love to see what it is that you're actually wanting to outsource as well, because I can potentially support you in figuring out how to do that. Maybe I've got the VAs already. Maybe I got recommendations. So that's step number one. You want to actually list all these things out, okay? Step number two, you want to pick one thing from this list, okay? And when I say one thing, I'm going to give you a really simple example. Who here uses needs a lead magnet? Okay, I know there's a lot of people here who needs a lead magnet. Now, here's the thing about a lead magnet. You're going to, like I already told you, open up a Google Doc, write the lead magnet. A lot of you is going to have an easier time just typing it up on a Google Doc. Instead of then going to Canva and trying to figure out how to piece together this lead magnet, here's what you're going to do. You're going to create a lead magnet, Google Doc, 2 pages. Make a checklist or a simple guide or something, 1 or 2 pages. That's it. Don't do more than 2 pages. Take this Google Doc, and then you're going to go to Upwork. In Upwork, what you're going to do is you're going to post a job for $10. $10, okay? And you're going to hire maybe 5 people. Now, every one of these 5 people, you're going to basically do a post. And in that post, you're going to say that it's called a job post. You're going to say, and I'll give you the script, okay? And I'll have the transcription afterwards. I am looking to find a virtual assistant to help me with my graphic design. I have one small project that I need your help on, which is to take my Google Doc, which is 1 or 2 pages, and turn it into a beautiful design on Canva. I'm going to give this Google Doc to 5 different graphic designers on Upwork to get the best quality checklist. The person that's going to do the best job, I'm looking to hire them for a more permanent position to help me with different tasks in my business. $10 each, okay, offer it. You'll get a whole bunch of people saying, yes, I'm interested. Yes, I want it. You'll get VAs offering it, okay? Now, I'm not saying that you're gonna genuinely give them $10. You might give them a bonus, right? But get those 5 people, give them that task. Now, here's a really cool hack. You don't have to give them just a one lead magnet, okay? You can actually give them something else. So one of them, you give them the Google Doc for your lead magnet, okay? The other person, you're going to tell them, create a banner for my Facebook profile. The next one, you're going to tell them, create a banner for my YouTube channel. The other one, you're going to tell them, create the Instagram highlights. You know those round highlights from the Instagram? Tell them, create the highlights for me or something like that, okay? As an example. Now, another Google Doc you can actually write is write a Google Doc that explains who you are, what you do, who you serve, what do you sell, what your pricing is. Let's do just a brain dump. Let's just say that you're having a sales conversation. What is the basic, all the information you need? Same, and did that Google Doc, give it to another graphic designer and say, create an Instagram story post out of it. So you can have the stories basically laid out that way for your stories, and do another one for your Instagram post. Now, I told you to hire 5 graphic designers. In reality, you can hire 10 graphic designers to get all these things done for you. And I want you to think about that for a minute. How long will it take you to do all these things on your own? I just told you. Create YouTube channel art, create your Facebook profile, create an Instagram post, carousel, 10 slides, create your lead magnet, create Instagram story with all your offering, all that stuff. If you have never used Canva, or even if you are used to Canva, it's going to take you a few hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours, maybe 20 hours. Who knows? The point is that instead of you spending time doing that, you can actually pay $10 each person, give them the task, cost you $50 to $100 or whatever. And not only that, you're then going to receive all these things. Now, there's a number of benefits to doing it. Number one, you'll actually get good quality stuff back. Number two, you will learn what it's like to be a CEO for a moment. Because the thing that you're going to realize along as you grow, and this is something that also I had to have a mindset shift, is that you can't be a solopreneur forever if you really want to grow, okay? And what I mean by really grow, like if you want to hit 6 figures or multiple 6 figures, you're going to have to grow beyond just being a solopreneur. It doesn't mean you have to hire a huge company. That's not the point. But if you want to grow and scale and have more freedom, you definitely want to outsource different things. It doesn't mean full-time employees, but at least part-time. So you'll learn a little bit about yourself. And not only that, it will also teach you how to communicate to your VAs. Because if there's one thing I learned by doing this process that I'm telling you right now, I learned that like if you heard me talk about virtual assistants a year ago, 2 years ago, I might have told you, oh yeah, these VAs are shit. Okay, sorry, excuse the language. You know, I might say, oh, this VAs are this or this VAs are that or whatever. And the truth is that actually there was nothing wrong with the VA. There was something wrong with how I communicated. So you will learn about yourself how to communicate things better as well, which is actually really important, because the truth is these virtual assistants, they can't read your mind. Okay, you gotta also people can't read your mind. You have to be a good communicator to be able to get the same result. Like if you're going to say apples and they come back with pears, right? You're going to need to understand that maybe the way you communicated apples is not actually very good. You might have to get better at that communication level. So these are the benefits. Number one, you'll get a whole bunch of assets back. Probably 3 out of the 10 assets are going to be great. Okay. Maybe 2 or 3 of them are going to be good, and 2 are probably going to be average to unusable, and 2 of the VAs are probably going to disappear. Okay, I'm just telling you right now. That's kind of like how that's going to work, right? And this is where I feel that this is how I would recommend you start, because you're going to get a whole bunch of things you actually need to get done, completed anyway, and you'll gain all this experience. So that's the process that I would recommend, okay? Now, let's just pretend that you find a superstar VA. Out of these 10 people, you're going to find one that is an absolute superstar. Now, there's one thing I need to note. When you post a job on Upwork, I usually post and I say, I'm not looking for a graphic designer. I mean, I say I look for a graphic designer, but I say I'm looking for a virtual assistant, okay? Because when you say I'm looking for a virtual assistant, you're gonna get a much bigger pool of people who classify themselves as virtual assistants. And I think the reason is a lot of them don't know how to market themselves. So they just say, I'm a virtual assistant and I can do anything, right? So you kind of get that. And it's not just about their learning experience. You also learn about their communication level, how quick they are to communicate, and all these things, right? How can they duplicate things along these lines, okay? And by the way, I have a full course on all of these, everything I'm showing you. I actually have a course on that that's like very close to being finished, basically. So anyway, that's a whole different topic. We'll talk about that later. So that's the hiring process, okay? First of all, just a little bit of feedback. Was this helpful in terms of how to hire? Let me know in the comments. That's number one. I just want to make sure. While I see the comments coming through, I'm going to now share my screen so I can show you my project management tool for Bloo and show you behind the scene of how I organize all these things, okay? Okay, one comment from Hillary. This totally worked for me in podcast editing. I got 6 podcasts edited from 4 different VAs. Love it. Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, let me find my project management tool. Okay, there it is. Bear with me here as I'm sharing screen. Just created my Upwork account. Love it, Amy. I actually just got approved to be Upwork affiliate like 2 days ago. I had to I had to bash them over the head to like give me an affiliate approval. They were like, no, you're not approved. I'm like, people, come on. Anyway, so logical, brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thanks. Okay, cool. Let's move on. So I'm going to share my screen. Tell me if you can see my screen. Yeah. Okay, you can all see it, right? Alrighty, so Hillary. 1 was great, 2 were good, 1 was not a podcast editor. It's kind of funny. You get some interesting people on Upwork. It gets a really bad rap, right? Anyway. Okay, so here's the project management tool. So let me show you how this works. This is a really important column. This is called Run Ideas, okay? Now, the Run Ideas is basically where you're going to brain dump all your ideas. It doesn't have to be, and this is video editing, right? So this is all the video editing tasks. So for example, somebody asked me in my tech support membership a few days ago, it was maybe 5 days ago, how do I create italicized font and different fonts on Facebook posts? And I thought it's such a good question. So I recorded a short video for them to show them. And then I need that to be, I need to add a couple of things. I need to research something else additional to that. And I need to update that video. And then I need to turn it into a YouTube video. So I answered that question. Another video that I have is System.io video hosting explained. So I had a question to do with the video hosting of System during a group session. And I answered that question, but I didn't have time to record a tutorial to explain that because this is a question that I did not answer in my YouTube channel. So I made a note to remember, oh yeah, I need to record that. Also, I do not have a video about creating an order bump in System.io. So I made a note to do that as well. Additionally, I was doing a session with somebody and I was showing him how to do keyboard shortcuts. And they were like, oh my God, like Command C, Command V. I had no idea I can do that. So I thought, oh my God, I should do a keyboard shortcut training and cheat sheet. So I made a note of that. So here you see the whole bunch of videos that I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably do a video on that because this is a good topic. So this is number 1. This is how I can not forget about my ideas. And when I'm inspired to like, okay, I'm going to go and record videos, then I can go and I can batch a whole bunch of video content, okay? Now, when I batch a bunch of video content, what I do is I then record it. And when I record it with Loom, and then I upload it right here. So here is an example. This is a really good example. So part of the videos that I did, I don't remember which video this one was, but I think when I set up the course for the summit, basically, what I did is I recorded myself creating the course for the summit, basically. So I recorded myself doing it. And once I record it, I upload it here. I post the link here to Loom video. I tag it as course. And the difference is YouTube, course, TikTok. So if it's course, my virtual assistant knows that in this particular video, she doesn't need to put a little banner that says, please subscribe, basically. And she doesn't have to do an ending to subscribe to my YouTube channel because it's going to be part of a course video. So this just tells my VA what type of video is it. Is it a course video or is it a YouTube video? Then it goes to her and you can see the entire list. So these are the different videos she has. So for example, hiring a logo designer, how to do that, which is what I just explained. Course outline in a day over the shoulder. What is Zapier? What does connecting two software tools mean? Okay, this is a question I had in my tech support membership. Was like, somebody was like, what's Zapier? I don't understand. So I recorded a video on that. Sales page in a day tutorial and video creation and recording. So this video is how to create a video on Canva. You can see there's a whole bunch of different videos here, and then it turns over to my VA. Once it's recorded and my video editor starts editing, the ones at the top are the videos that she's going to edit first. Once she edits them, she moves it over here. So this is an example of a video that she just submitted. So I'm just going to play the first 30 seconds or so. So you can see that this is the Loom video. And now I'm going to click on here and she uploaded the video ready for me to watch. Oh, I think it's not going to play because I'm actually recording my screen at the same time. So the bandwidth is not good enough. Let me just try again, just in case. Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to work. Anyway, it actually plays when I'm not downloading. So anyway, I'll have to show it another time, basically. It basically doesn't, it's too much bandwidth to capture. Uno momento here. One moment. Yeah, it won't play just because it's just not set up to play right now. Anyway, that's fine. Let me just keep going with the rest of the content. Okay, so I can click on this, I can watch it, and I can give her feedback. Once I approve it, for example, then what I do is I move it over to either YouTube upload, where it gets assigned to my other YouTube VA, who's going to upload it to YouTube, or alternatively, I upload it to Searchy, where it's going to be uploaded to my course area. Now, I've got another VA, and what she does, I'm just going to show you. When I move this over, this is why Bloo is great. I want you to pay attention. Right now, my name is here. You can see my face. I'm assigned. Once I approve it to go to YouTube, it's going to change to the other VA. So I'm going to move it right here, and notice that the face changes. So it automatically gets assigned, basically, and it's going to notify my VA that she can now upload it to the YouTube channel. Now, my YouTube VA already knows the YouTube process of what she needs to do, which is create YouTube description, which is to create the tags, create a thumbnail, and all these things. And by the way, that whole explainer on how to do these tasks and all that, I have it here under discussion, where there's a whole tutorial for her on every task that she needs to do, so she can always refer back to. So all my SOPs are basically under discussions. Okay, so then this one I'm going to move back because it's actually not ready for her. If it goes to Searchy, let me just move it back to me. So you can see it automatically gets assigned back to me. If I move it to Searchy, then again, it gets assigned to her. Now, when it's a course, she knows the task is a little bit different. It's not YouTube where you have, it's not the same tasks where it's the YouTube description and all that, but instead with Searchy, it's go through the transcription to make sure that the transcription is done correctly. Number 2, create chapters. Number 3, create bullet point summary for the course as well. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in a moment. So I'm going to move it back here because that one's not ready. Now let's just pretend, and then once she's done it, she moves it to ready for the course. So let me find a video, for example, how to create an anchor section. There you go. So how to create an anchor section. No, that's not a good example. Let me find a longer video. This is a great video. Okay, so connecting the different processes and stuff. Let me see if I can play this video and show you. I'm going to share my other screen, so bear with me for a minute. Yeah, this is a really good example. One moment, I'm just sharing my other screen. I'm seeing people's questions coming through. I'll answer that in a moment as well. Great questions. Okay, tell me if you can see my screen. Okay, yeah, perfect. Okay, so this video, what's good about that is notice that here, when you play, this is a 16 minutes video. There is obviously a transcription right here. And the value of a transcription is, let's just say I'm going to look for the word landing, as in landing page. I'm going to click on enter. And now you'll notice that if I hover over this and over here, you can actually see the text appear. So I can read it before I decide if I want to watch that section. If I do want to, I then click on it and it jumps to that section immediately. So my VA goes through and makes sure the transcription it doesn't have crazy errors. That's number 1. And then the other thing is she watches the video and she creates chapters on every single piece. So for example, this one, tips for formatting a thank you video. Okay, tips for mobile optimization. Tips for editing your thank you video page. How to embed your thank you video, how to create a thank you page, how to embed your thank you video, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to course videos, she knows that she needs to create all these pieces basically as part of this project management. So there is a very distinct task that she needs to do for course videos versus creating it for YouTube videos as well. And again, all that explainers and stuff is all under discussions. She has the SOPs because I've taught her how to do all of that. Now, this brings me to a really important point that I want to share, okay? So for example, who attended the session this morning with Scott Brownlee, the Simple Booklet CEO? I mentioned in that session that I'm going to be, I created a course for Simple Booklet, flip ebook in a day, right? There's a strategy why I'm creating it. Yes, I'm creating it because I want to sell the course. I want to give it to you and all that stuff. The real reason why I'm creating these courses is because I have a virtual assistant team that I'm hiring, and I want to teach them how to do the things that I help people one-on-one with in my one-on-one sessions, right? So I'm creating these courses so I can then tell one of my virtual assistants, for example, here's my flip ebook in a day course. Go through the course, learn how to do it, so that when I have a customer, like one of you saying, I need help with my Simple Booklet, I could say, no problem. Hop on a Zoom call with my VA, they will help you. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm creating a massive library of SOPs. All these courses, landing page in a day, thank you page in a day, flip ebook in a day, text automations in a day. I'm really creating all these courses for my virtual assistants so I can hire out massive teams of virtual assistants with the training so that when I have new members coming up next month, next year, whatever, I have VAs who can literally just hop on a Zoom call one-on-one and help you with every single task that you're going to need help with basically for whatever, right? Now that's going to take time to train all these VAs. There's obviously costs to hire those VAs, but the point is, as I'm creating all these courses, I'm basically creating the onboarding for all these people, basically. So that is why I'm creating these in-a-day courses, because it's for my VAs to be able to do that, which is also why I'm raising my price on membership, because for me to hire those VAs, like if you think about the vision long-term, like I'm thinking like in a year or 2 years from now, I want you to be able to have a specific problem where it's like, I need to, get sorted on recording Loom videos. I have a VA that could show you how to install Loom, record on Loom, use Loom perfectly, and do that with you so you don't have to do it yourself, as an example. Or if it is something to do with your landing pages, great. They can hop on a Zoom call and show you what to do on the landing page, or any other tasks, okay? So that's kind of the strategy, and that's why I'm raising the price, because obviously if I was to have, like, let's say 10, 20, 30 VAs that do that, well, there's costs of training, costs of hiring, and all that stuff. So that's kind of the goal with setting all this up, basically, okay? Let me just take care. There's a couple of really good questions I want to answer here. How many screens are you looking at simultaneously? Many. Great question from Hillary. What do you like about Bloo compared to Asana and other org tools? First of all, I think that it really doesn't matter which one you pick, okay? I'm not pitching Bloo just because I'm like, oh, use Bloo and that's that. You know what I mean? Like it's the best one or whatever. The other tools, Asana, Trello, Basecamp, ClickUp, Airtable, they're all great in their own way. What I like about Bloo specifically is I found it to be the most intuitive, number one. And let's put it that way. There is a book, a biography about Steve Jobs, right? And in there is something that he said where the Apple iPhone needs to be basically, I don't know what the exact word is, but basically tutorial less, i.e. you don't need a tutorial to pick up an iPhone and be able to start using it. It needs to be so intuitive that you don't need to watch any tutorials. So with Bloo, I have never watched a tutorial from the company. I just didn't need to, because when I logged in, I could figure out how things work. It just was intuitive enough. And also my virtual assistants, the same thing. Now I needed to record tutorials for them on how I customize Bloo, right? But I didn't need to do that in terms of like how to use a specific feature per se. So that's why I like Bloo. Now Asana, I just got lost in the features, to be honest. Airtable, I love Airtable. Airtable, I loved it for the specific purpose of managing stuff for me. But once I started adding more than one virtual assistant, I just found it difficult to manage, basically. It just wasn't adding value. But one VA is fine with it. But once I added more, it just didn't flow for me. It didn't work out for me for whatever reason, basically. Idiot proof, intuitive, absolutely. So that's really important. Yeah, it's great question. I really think it's more important that you pick one and stick with it versus going with whatever. But that's what I like about it. We'd love to know more about the access available with Bloo versus the different package options. I get features using a subscription, or is it a free version? Great question. So I'll tell you. I'll share my screen. Might as well. So Bloo, in comparison to other tools, you can actually use Asana or Airtable or Asana or ClickUp or Trello for free. Bloo has a free trial, but it's actually a paid option. So it's I'll tell you the price in a moment. But the thing about Bloo is, if you look at the pricing from ClickUp, for example, and maybe I'll just give you a realistic example. I might as well just share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Otherwise, it won't quite make sense the same way. Let me just log into ClickUp. Uno momento. It's a great question, Remy. Okay, so if you look at ClickUp, you will notice if you look at pricing, basically, yes, it is free. And then you have $5 a month or $9 a month. And pay attention to this, per member, i.e., if I have 7 VAs, 7, because that's what I have right now, and me, I want you to think about that for a minute. So I'm going to pay $9 multiply 8. I'm going to pay $72 a month to use ClickUp. Okay. Now, if I pay for the year, that's fine. I could do that. But I'm not even going to get all the features that I want. Okay. So it's very much built for enterprise. If I was to look at Asana.com as an example, which is another project management tool, the pricing model is very similar. Look at the pricing, and they're great tools, right? Don't get me wrong. This is not a bash at them, but we're all solopreneurs here. So here you go, $14 a month per user. Okay. Now, just to give you context, also with regards to give you, let me just go back to give you context with regards to why Manny started Bloo in the first place. The reason he started it is because he actually had an agency where he had 30 different employees, virtual employees. Now, all these employees, basically, I think he was paying $800 or $900 a month, basically, and it just was ridiculous. So what he did is he basically built Bloo to solve his own problem, to run his own creative agency. And by the way, the creative agency, it's called, oh my God, mad.co. Yeah. If you want to get inspiration about landing pages, I mean, that particular website is so good. This is Mad. This is his creative agency. He's actually not running it anymore. He's still the founder, but he actually hired a CEO to run it for him so he can focus on Bloo full time, basically. So they do corporate companies, they serve different companies from, I mean, you can look at the names, they've had Ford as a client, CBRE is a major client of theirs, and stuff like that. So they've got offices in different places, Cambodia, that's where he is right now. So anyway, that's a little bit of information about the background. So he started Bloo to be able to not have to pay these ridiculous fees, basically. And that's how that came about. So that's, with Bloo, you're basically paying $50 a month or $500 a year, and you get unlimited VAs, unlimited everything. Basically, there's no multiple options. There's just one pricing plan, $50 a month, and that's it. And now we're talking about pricing. It's actually not. If you go to bloo.cc/Eran, you can actually use the code Eran and get 80% off. So basically, you can actually get Bloo for $10 a month or $100 a year. Take your pick, basically. And you could just use my coupon code, and they created a page specifically for my audience, basically. So there you go, little partnership. So you can see that they literally created a page with me here. So you can check it out later, sign up for a free account and check it out and play with it for yourself. And if you like it, you can use the coupon code Eran and get it for $10 a month or $100 a year. And that's a lifetime cost, i.e. it's not going to be for the first year and the price will go up. You will pay, and that you're locked in at that price forever. And not only that, you can have as many VAs. So if you decide to want to build a team of whatever, however many VAs you want, the price will always remain $10, basically. So yeah, $100 a year. Yeah, I know, it's a great price. So there you go. Little negotiation happened in the background in the last few weeks to make that happen. So anyway, there you go. And by the way, for anybody that signs up for the annual plan, not the monthly plan, if you end up signing up for the annual plan, let me know. I will give you access to my all my tutorials on how I use Bloo. I'll give you access to all my tutorials on that. I've got about 6 or 7 tutorials, very, very, very detailed on everything step by step. So there you go. Remy, cost per person, great point. I appreciate platforms that have access to features behind a paywall versus you can do ABC, but you can't do D&E, and we'll show you. Yeah, I know. It's just so... And Remy, this is a really good point. I'm going to tell you why this is also a point that why Bloo is different to others. You got to understand that if you look at ClickUp and you look at Asana and you look at all these companies, they are actually venture capital companies, VC-backed companies. What it means is that they have raised millions and millions and millions of dollars, and their client, their ideal client, is not me and you. Their clients that they're after is Google, Microsoft, Ford, CBRE. Like, they're after the big companies to put their entire 10,000 man team on those companies. They're looking, they're creating those tools for those companies, right? So that's really the point. Bloo, on the other hand, is a self-funded company, bootstrap company. They don't have the VC behind them. And that's why the cost can actually be a lot lower, because they're not trying to return an investment of, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. So there is a very distinct reason. And by the way, Simple Booklet is also not VC backed. System.io is not VC backed. Now, I'm not against VC backed companies. TextPlace is VC backed. VC stands for venture capital, by the way. So, by the way, when I started working online, before I started online business, I was totally obsessed with, number one, business, but also mergers and acquisitions. So I learned all about raising capital and you know, all that whole world of exits. And, you know, so when I hear people's stories like Scott, when he was talking about how he had a $20 million exit, I mean, I just love that stuff. So there you go. Cheryl asks, is your coupon code offer time limited? Look, for right now, no, not that I know of. I mean, you know, let's put it that way. They've given me this coupon for right now. It's on their website. You can grab it. Whether it's going to be there forever, I don't know. Like with Clipscribe, they've given me, Craig is giving me this code, a 10% code forever. Basically, with Bloo, I'm not sure. It is a pretty big discount. So, you know, yeah. Anyway, I don't have an answer for that. I mean, if I tell them and I say, look, just keep it up for me, maybe they'll be fine, but I can't vouch for that for sure. Yeah. So there you go. Hillary said $100 a year. Yeah. Give me 1 second. I think we sorted out Manny. Give me 1 second. Bear with me for one moment. Okay, I'm back. Manny will join in a minute. I just got him, so we're all good. Wi-Fi is all sorted and all that. So there you go. Yes, such a good offer. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the tutorials and all this stuff, I'll just show you a little bit behind the scene. If you're interested, let me just let me just see if I could show you a little bit about the course as well. Does anybody have any questions for me about the VAs or anything like that, by the way, or anything that I've shown you so far? I'm pretty sure I covered like what I wanted to cover in terms of the VAs. Hopefully that gave you enough insights. Oh yeah, you're gonna love this. Hang on. So bear with me. This course is not done, okay? But this is where it's at so far. This is my course, Hiring and Managing Virtual Assistants course, okay? Now, this course, by the way, let me just be clear. The bonus I'm giving is this section, Bloo Project Management. I'm not giving the whole course away. The whole course is only for the membership. The Bloo Project Management System, that's the bonus that I'm giving for annual plans, okay? Now, here is the Bloo Project Management. Have a look. First of all, here is what the VA, you know how I was telling you, you know how I told you my VA is actually gonna create bullet points? So this is what she creates. She creates the summary of the video with bullet points like this. Look at these bullet points. I mean, she's so good. Then she creates a flow chart on the video process as well. Then she records, I have the video edited. She creates chapters on every single step. So have a look here. How I set up Bloo, what is the video section, how to create a task, how to add a checklist, how to assign people to a subtask, how to see which VA is assigned to which, how I review videos and how would I give a critique. Here I'm giving a realistic example of reviewing a video. What do I do when there's no feedback? What to do when the video is ready to upload, and so on and so on. So this is all literally step by step. Then I've got the next lesson is the exact same process. Again, bullet points and a flow chart, but specifically on Reels, okay? And again, there's a whole process on Reels that I have, which is totally different. This one is the automations, how I set up the automations in Bloo as well. So this is a really short section, I think. It's a really short video on how to use the automations to save you time. And there's about 4 other videos that are ready to go. I just haven't uploaded them yet. So here you have other videos, why you need a virtual assistant as well, how to post a job on Upwork. You know how I told you to post a job on Upwork? So this tutorial will actually show you how to do it step by step with a flow chart and an actual tutorial on how to do it step by step. Everything about how to price VAs. I know this is a huge topic. You're going to want to know, how do you pay VAs? How you price VAs? All that stuff. That is all covered in this course as well. So there you go. That's just a little bit of insights about what to expect. If you're in the membership, that course is going to be available in the next few weeks. If you're going to sign up for Bloo for the annual plan, then you'll get access and so on. So yeah. Let me take care of a couple of questions, and then I'll bring Manny over to have a chat and turn it over to him. So remind what do you use to edit video and add chapters? Searchy, yeah. So searchy.io. If you go to around.link/searchy, that's the one that I use. Yeah. So there you go. That's the answer to that one. Cool. I think I answered everybody's questions. Awesome. All righty. Thanks everybody for being with me and letting me improvise. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, and hopefully you enjoyed my improvisation here. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, share Manny with you. Let me just tell you something about Manny. I'll bring him on the screen and I'll tell you a little bit about why I really wanted to have him on. So, hey Manny.
How's it going?
Oh, can't hear you? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Awesome. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. So you're in the offices now. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's where the photo is from as well. So let me tell you why I wanted to have Manny on. If you go to, first of all, if you want to get an inspiration about a really good website and a company and the copy and the design, go to mad.co. Okay, I have read a lot of their stuff there. I mean, they've got the funny, I mean, it's actually really entertaining, really good copy, really good everything. I think there's a blog post about the dress code, and I said, please wear clothes. That was the dress code for your company. I thought it was kind of funny. Anyway, they basically took all their company's SOPs, all the internal documents. I mean, they've put it all public. I mean, like completely transparent company. I love that. So there's a lot of stuff to be learned, and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy the fact that he started Bloo because of solving his own problem. And, you know, just seeing Bloo and how intuitive it was. So there you go. Mad.co, that was the name of the company. I'll type it in. Anyway, there you go. Manny, great to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And also, likewise, I've been following a lot of what you've been doing for, I think, probably more than a year now, Aaron. Yeah. And I think, likewise, I think your email copy is probably the most unique I've ever seen as well.
Oh, wow. Thanks. Thanks for that. Yeah, absolutely. Do you know how we connected? Do you actually remember how we connected?
If I believe that, I believe one of my team reached out to you via your YouTube channel, right? Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So this is so funny. This is so funny. And I'm super curious to hear from you about this, okay? So I had a YouTube video review about Airtable because if anybody's been following me longer than a year, you know that I was an Airtable diehard. I was like, use Airtable, use Airtable, use Airtable. And I did a video review on Airtable. And then one of his team members reached out to me and said, we saw your review on Airtable, loved your review. Would love to share this tool with you and see what you think. And then they gave me the tool for free. And then I was like, yeah, okay, I'll check it out. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually really good. And that's how we connected. So it was basically a cold outreach, not by you, but somebody from your team. And I want to know, what is your process for outreach, cold outreach like that? Basically, I'd love to know that process.
Yeah, so maybe I'll kind of back up and generally talk on a little bit on sales, and then get onto the cold outreach, because actually I've always been a lot into sales, because when you have your own business, you need to sell, right? You need to push. Having a great product, having a great service doesn't matter unless you can get that out to market, right? And actually, I've always been quite interested in reaching out and seeing if I can trigger business or trigger connections. So for instance, when Bloo started, and we just rebranded to BLUE, we used to be BLOO, I think, when you joined there. I got online and I looked at every other company that was called Bloo, BLOO, in the world, and I emailed every single one of them. And I said, oh, we're called Bloo, you're called Bloo, maybe you can use our software, right? And actually, our very, very first paid customer was an agency in Australia that I cold email, and then they became our customer. And so the same way, on YouTube, essentially, we were searching for related, influencers who were doing reviews on similar products, and we were basically dropping these into a Bloo board, right? And then once we decided, okay, we're going to review, are they the right type for us? We didn't want people that were necessarily too huge or too small, and that they had the right kind of approach to their reviews and right kind of audience. Then we'd reach out and we'd move that through a process, right? Essentially, we would track that in Bloo as well, right? And I think that's a really nice thing, because you can reach out to 40, 50, 60 people or even hundreds of people and keep it all nice and neat within Bloo.
Amazing. And who writes the scripts? Do you write the scripts and then give it to them? How does that whole process work?
No, we've got our amazing Sarah, who normally writes the first draft of everything, and then I check that out. I'm going to embarrass her now. I'll come on video and say hello. But so this is Sarah. She answers all the emails and looks after our support team. But yeah, so she generally tends to write all all the emails. All right, I'll stop embarrassing you. But
awesome.
So yeah, we kind of do that kind of collaborative effort. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I mean, that was just fascinating to me that, that's just how it happened. I was like, this is so good. Like I want a team of people doing cold outreach. So, I want to know how that whole work. We can definitely talk about that more, but let me ask you this. You had a presentation you wanted to share with us, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I think essentially this presentation is a mix of kind of delegation, but also different ways of thinking about how you get things done as a leader, right? Because I think leadership and entrepreneurship and delegation are like intrinsically linked. And so I gave this presentation, or a version of it, a couple of years ago to a group of women entrepreneurs. And then quite recently, I gave it internally within the UN, where I kind of consult. And that was well received. And I think so I've managed to sort of develop it since then. And I think it would be quite useful, because at some point, as you scale up, either with virtual assistants or even with full-time staff, and as a company grows, you definitely realize you can't do everything yourself, and yet you still want to keep the right kind of quality, the right kind of output, the right kind of speed, right? So then the question is, how do you go about that?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'll let you take it away then to do that. So you share your screen, and then I'll be able to kind of put it there. By the way, I'm going to share the link for everybody if you want to check out Bloo. So it's bloo.cc/run. I'll put it in the chat as well. You can check it out afterwards, sign up for a free trial, and just use the coupon run for the 80% off, basically. So it'll be either $10 a month or $100 a month. If you pay for the annual, which I definitely prefer you do, I'll give you the access to my video tutorials, basically. Cool. I'm seeing your screen now, and then do you want to share the actual presentation itself?
Yeah.
This one? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So we can see it now.
Cool. All right. So great. So I think that in terms of being able to delegate efficiently, I think that the question behind delegation is, what does it mean to be efficient, right? And essentially, is that the amount of things that you're getting done in a particular time frame? You know, how much you can squash in a given day or in a given week, especially through the work of other people, or perhaps is it the outcomes and results that we achieve, right? Regardless of the effort involved. Or perhaps is it having a good work-life balance, right? You hire people so you can delegate work, so you can do less work yourself, right? And I think this is also something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, because as things get busier, one straightforward way to keep the speed and quality of the work going is to just micromanage everything and do a ton of work yourself. But I think that doesn't scale in kind of a long term. So yeah, and to kind of back up a little bit in terms of my organizations. So essentially, I've got 3 that I've started alongside with my brother. So that's one is Sound School, which is a set of music schools, and I'll show some photos of that. MAD, which you spoke with, and I'm sitting in the offices right now. So this is a kind of consulting firm, kind of focusing on workflow and process and things like that. And then finally, Bloo, which is obviously the kind of project management application, right, that people can sign up to today. And between that, there's probably about 75 team members, and the different organizations are different sizes, and there's kind of different management structures. But yeah, there's a lot going on, and across 2 offices and probably another 4 or 5 locations. It's probably spread across kind of 6 locations. Checking my personal task list, I've probably got about 180 something things to do in my backlog. Doesn't necessarily mean that it will get done, but I mean, that's that. And probably about 16 projects that I'm kind of looking at the moment. And on a typical week, I'll probably have something between 25 and 30 meetings or calls. So it's quite busy. And this is some of the stuff, how it looks like. So this is Sound School. It's a couple of the schools, some of the music shops. You can see the staff. Quite interesting enough, this is a company that's, I think, something like 85% women, which is, I guess, quite rare in a lot of industries. So it's almost completely run by women, which probably does better for that. And then, yeah, so this is MAD. You can see where we're in the offices right now. And then we've got Bloo, which is, the kind of software company and the application. So, yeah, and I guess the key problem is really that there's always going to be too much to do when you have a startup, right? And essentially because startups lack resources, right? But actually, in my experience, big organizations do as well, right? I mean, I work very, very closely with a team, with the organizational change team at United Nations. The same thing, they've got, while it's a huge organization, they still lack resources as a team, right? They would like to have more people, they would like to have more time. But unfortunately, that's the reality, is that work will always catch up to how many resources you have, right? And so with that, especially in a startup environment, you will be working on things that you're not good at or doing for the first time. And that's also, you may be managing experts that you don't have that expertise, right? So if you're not a software developer, how do you manage a software developer? Or if you're not a designer, how do you manage a designer? And so on, for very disciplined, right? From marketing to finance and so on. And yeah, so often, when you're starting out, you're going to be CEO, CFO, head of marketing, human resources, basically any job that you need to do. Maybe that only you can do it, right? And also there's going to be a lot of uncertainty at a startup level, right? I mean, you're not necessarily going to know which is the right path, and that's going to cause you to hesitate, right? Things are going to take longer than they should. You're going to have a bit of self-doubt. You're going to wonder, is this the right path? Do you want to commit 100%, or do you want to run small tests? And I think that's kind of natural, but it does mean that you're going to get more and more things that kind of build up in your backlog, right? And then you're going to have also a lot of different stakeholders. So, when you're running a startup, a lot of people start a startup because they think, oh, I don't want to work for a company. I want to be my own boss, and then nobody can tell me what to do. Unfortunately, the reality is not that clean. Even if you start your own company, you're still going to have a lot of people that you've got to kind of have responsibilities for, right? So obviously that can be investors. So if you raise money from people, you may have a board of directors again, as well, especially if you raise money. You might have advisors. Obviously, you've got your clients. Regardless if you work for a company or a startup, if you're client facing, that's a big responsibility. You may have business partners as well, right? They may be working with you on a daily basis, or they may be silent partners that have just invested, right? But still, they're gonna expect things from you. You're also gonna have suppliers a lot of times. I think for internet businesses, that tends to be simpler, because you tend to buy, things like, your suppliers tend to be companies like Bloo, where you can just buy the service online. It's very transactional. You can go on the site, you buy it. You never really have to speak to us or any of your other software providers, right? But that said, some businesses, you will have suppliers, right? If you're shipping any physical products out, or if you're doing any kind of outsourcing, then you're going to have suppliers. They want to be, they've also got kind of responsibilities that they want from you. They've got to be paid on time. You got to give them direction, and so on, right? And then obviously staff, right? And I lump kind of virtual assistants within that. They're also going to have responsibilities that they expect you to have, right? Wherever that's, not making sure that we, everything is kind of last minute, or wherever there's clear briefings and so on, right? And also finally, you might have press, and then you've also got your personal life somewhere in there, right? You've got your family, you've got your friends. They also expect a slice of your time. So with that, I want to point out the kind of what I call the great equalizer. So everybody in the entire of history has had the same number of hours in the week, right? So any president you can think of, any great historical figure, we can look at the Churchills, we can look at Julius Caesar, we can look at even Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. Everybody has had that same amount of time, right? So obviously, this is not something that can particularly be hacked around, right? A week is going to last a week, regardless of what you do. So way we can do that is we can think, well, how can we split this week, and how can we be efficient, right? So in a typical kind of startup, you might have a sort of a relaxed work schedule, which is more like for established companies, might be something like this, right? You'll sleep 8 hours, you'll work 8 hours, and then you've got 8 hours to do your personal life, right? And if you've got a lot to do, I guess the one way to handle that is to then go on a more aggressive kind of work schedule, where you say, okay, I'm starting a company, I do really want it to be successful. I'm going to work 12 hours a day, right? And then I would suggest you don't sacrifice on sleep, but you kind of reduce your potentially your personal time going out, things like this. So in terms of that, we then look at time strategy, right? Because before you can start to delegate tasks, you do also need to be aware of how you're working, right? So what I would suggest here is that you count up your working time, you track your time, you divide that by all the stakeholders that we mentioned earlier, and then it's pretty easy. You're now giving everyone the time they need, right? So let's assume an aggressive work schedule. You've got 84 working hours. You've got your kind of 25 stakeholders, and you're going to give people 3.5 hours of time a week individually. Now, that sounds like a great idea. Aaron, I think you know me, that I always like to be a little bit different. Do you see anything potentially wrong with doing something like this?
84 working hours, 25 stakeholders. Yeah, I mean, way too much distractions, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah. Correct. Because I think
Conflicting opinions.
it basically, yeah, you're right. Your time as a leader and as a startup founder would be completely split up amongst all these different people, and some of them have got different tolerances for how long they can wait, or maybe they're very independent and they can be left alone, and so on. So really, it does ignore those kind of key facts that not all tasks are equally urgent, right? Some things need to be done today. Some things can be left until they become urgent, right? Not all tasks have the same impact, right? I'm sure your entire audience is familiar with the 80-20 rule, right? A fraction of your input will be responsible for the majority of your output, right? Most businesses, they have a handful of customers that are the majority of revenue, right? So on. Different stakeholders have had different levels of patience, right? Sometimes you can take a week to email somebody back. That's okay, right? You need to be aware of your different stakeholders and how you can treat them. So basically that's goes to the point that not all tasks are equally important, right? So then from there, we're going to say, okay, so that means that we need to find a way of saying, okay, how important is something? And then should I work on it or should somebody else work on it, right? We kind of need to go through this thought process. And I'll skip the suggestions and I'll introduce the strategy that I use. And I've been using for quite a while. And I think it's a really, really good strategy. And I call that the kind of lazy CEO strategy, right? And essentially, this comes from a fantastic book that I would highly recommend everybody buy. Great CEOs Are Lazy. So it's by Jim Schlexer. I'm sure I just completely butchered his name, but yeah, it's a fantastic book. And essentially, the core message is, don't confuse busyness with results, right? Because your customers really don't care how busy you are, right? They care what you can do for them, right? So if you start to get into a situation where actually you're sitting in the office and you have a good amount of spare time, you're probably starting to do things right? Your virtual assistants or your teams, they're working, they're humming along, they've got the right kind of workload, and you're kind of stepping back from the business and observing that and helping them, then that's the place you want to be in, right? You don't want to be constantly in execution mode where you're doing the work and you're working in the business, right? You want to step outside and work on the business, right? Look at the machine. And again, we have a related point here, I think, is don't do easy things, do what actually matters. And I think, again, that goes back to the point I made earlier that when you're a startup founder, you're going to be wearing all these different hats, right? CEO, you're going to look at finance, you're going to look at hiring. What happens often is that people have a background, they have a speciality in something. So maybe they love marketing and they'll do just marketing, right? They don't really focus on their product or customer service. Or even more common is that you'll get a technical founder who knows how to code and they'll spend all their time adding features and coding, right? They don't spend time speaking with customers, they don't spend time going out to market. And so they end up with this product that's sort of built in isolation and doesn't really make much sense, right? So yeah, the key question, as mentioned earlier, is at any given point in time is what to do next, right? What should you focus on? Because what should others be focusing on, right? And the answer to that is that if you're a startup founder, you should only be focusing on what I call the point of constraint. And that is essentially what's stopping things from moving forwards as fast as possible, right? So a great analogy here is that, if we have a garden hose and you're, watering your garden, the water is flowing smoothly and you're having fun, right? Great. But as soon as you get a knot in the hose and that turns that stream of water into a trickle, then it would be stupid to continue watering the garden. That would take the entire day, right? you're much better off stopping, fixing the problem, untying the hose, untying that kink, getting the water flowing again, and then watering your garden. And it will only take, 30 minutes, something like that, right? So that's really the point of constraint. And so that means that you should not allocate your time fairly to everything, right? You really need to be thinking, okay, what do I need to work on next? Is this the most important thing? If not, am I going to do it later, or am I going to be delegating it? Somebody else can do it, right? And working on the point of constraint, that is something that should never be delegated, right? That is literally the job of the founder. You need to be doing the work. That's the most important thing that's stopping you from moving forwards towards your goals, right? Now, I really want to stress that. So how do we tackle points of constraint? So startups are really just a massive problem-solving exercise. You wake up in the morning, you've got problems, and you'll work through the day to kind of solve those problems, go to sleep, wake up the next day and do it again, right? And so really, for tackling the point of constraint, you need to think, okay, what is the biggest problem? What's the biggest thing that is stopping us? So you need some kind of model to identify the point of constraint. You need to fix it, which again is great to put that into a presentation in a bullet point and say, fix it. It's a little bit more difficult to then actually do it in real life, but we'll talk about strategies to kind of fixing things. Give it to somebody else to manage. So this is important. So once, a specific area is a problem, you go in and you fix that personally, you then want to be handing that over to somebody else, right? Because as a leader, you need to be able to move on and then tackle something else, right? So again, based on this, the key question is then how to fix the point of constraint, right? And this is where I want to introduce the concept of 5 hats, right? So normally, when we talk about wearing different hats, we talk about a startup founder working on different functional areas of the business, right? So you may be spending, my morning is on finance, my afternoon is on marketing, and also on sales, right? And then my evening, I'm replying to customers, right? And these are different hats you're wearing. So you might be wearing a finance hat, you might be wearing a sales and marketing hat, you may be wearing a customer support hat. And that's a kind of common analogy. But these 5 hats are not, that I'm going to describe, are not functional areas. They're more ways of thinking, right? They're more models on how to approach problem solving, right? So the first hat is what I call the learner. And this is actually a hat that you should never be taking off, right? You always want to be incredibly curious about how things work, how things can be better, what customers are doing, how your team is working, and so on, right? And obviously, if you're here today watching this webinar, then well done. You've already got this learner hat on, right? You're investing your time, listening to this presentation, looking for new tools to help you improve your productivity. And that's kind of what you should be doing, right? So great. The next hat is what I call the architect. So this is looking at the strategy, right? So essentially, we're going to say, what do we need to do, right? That's strategy. What are the things we should be focusing on, and what are the things that we shouldn't be focusing on, right? Next is the engineer. So then this is how to make things better. If when you're looking at strategy, you're thinking what, the engineer, you're thinking how, right? So this is about setting up systems. And I think this is something that Aaron is fantastic at. And I think he's always kind of in engineer mode. I follow what you do, Aaron, and I think you're great at always looking at how do we improve the flows, right? That kind of stuff. I think that's kind of the vibe that I often get from you. And in some ways, I guess customers kind of delegate the engineer hat to you in some ways, right? Then the coach, right? How do you develop your team, right? So the most important thing as a startup founder is not the work necessarily that you're going to be doing in the long term, but it's work that other people are going to be doing on your team, right? And you're never going to hire the perfect person, right? Every person is going to have their strength, but they're also going to have a lot of weaknesses, right? And you don't really want to hire and just look at the weaknesses and go, this person doesn't know absolutely everything about what we're doing, right? You're going to have to coach them. You're going to have to, build up their strengths, cover their weaknesses, and so on. And the final hat is the player. Essentially, most of the time you want to be, looking up and being up and looking down on the business, right? Focus on the kind of a strategy. But sometimes you need to get your hands dirty, right? You need to get in and you need to do the thing yourself. And we'll speak a little bit about, when is the appropriate time to do that. So yeah, I'll cover each hat a little bit in detail. So again, learner hat, I think this one is a pretty obvious one. It's the most important hat, and it's the one that doesn't really ever come off. And I think what's important, especially in the last 10, 15 years, is that the expiry date on knowledge is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter, right? So perhaps before you could have known about technology and 10 years later, pretty much everything that you knew was still relevant. That's not so today, right? Very few people today are using 10-year-old software, right? And even if they are, that software is changing every month, right? It's being updated. So I think it's quite important to understand that you can't just expect to learn something once and then that's it. You need to keep improving and keep learning. And generally, you want to enjoy being curious, right? I mean, one of the reasons I love connecting with new people is that I tend to like just kind of shutting up and listening. And, you can get so much information from other people and you can learn all their mistakes and so on for a fraction of the time and money and sweat and blood that they invested doing their thing. You can get that for maybe 1% of the effort, right? Just by listening and asking the right questions. And so enjoy that process, right? So be architect. So strategy really, it's about connecting what you're doing right now to the bigger picture, right? So what are we doing right now? What are our long-term goals? Are these aligned, right? And specifically about goals, there's a bit of controversy wherever startups should be focusing on extremely clear-cut goals. So, we want to be number one in our market by 2025, or I want to make X amount of dollars by this date, or we're going to destroy our competitor, right? So for instance, an example, for Bloo, it could be something like, okay, we want to destroy ClickUp, right? We think it's too complex and too expensive, right? And so on. So there's different types of goals you can set. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it strategically is not to set goals, but to focus on execution and on process, right? So where you really, your organization just focuses on the core fundamentals that are not going to change, right? So for instance, for Bloo, no one's going to wake up in 10 years time and say, oh, I wish Bloo was more difficult to use. I wish it was slower. I wish the customer support really sucked, right? They're not going to say that, right? So obviously they're going to say, I love that it's easy to use. I love that it's fast. I love that the customer support is great and listens to us, right? So with that, it makes it very easy for me to say, okay, well, I'm going to invest a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort in these things, right? Because they're not going to change. So in 10 years time, I'm going to look back and be, oh, I'm really happy that I made those investments, right? So that's kind of two ways to look at kind of long-term strategy, and then really connecting what you're doing now to that kind of long-term outlook, right? So yeah, I'm a real proponent of long-term thinking. Now that said, I do want to stress that lots of effort does not overcome a bad strategy, right? So if you're going the wrong way, it doesn't really matter how quickly you're going there, right? Because you're going the wrong way, right? So you're going probably further away from your destination. So you do want to make sure that you do think about strategy. And some of the key questions I like to ask myself about strategy and really goals and all that kind of discussions to say, what would things look like if we could achieve everything, right? Right at the start of this presentation, I said, startups lack resources, right? The reason you can't do everything you want to do is, you lack something, right? Maybe you don't have enough time, you don't have enough team, you don't have enough money, right? Money is a great way to force people to make choices. So it's sometimes nice to step back and say, okay, if I didn't have any restraints, right? What would you do, right? And that often gives you some great hints about what a strategy may look like, perhaps on a smaller scale. And again, ask yourself what won't change in the long term. Finally, develop an offer that can't be refused, right? And I think, Aaron, I look at what you're doing with your support network and all the things that you build up, and you kind of layer offers on top, right? So somebody can come in and somehow discover you and take something free from you, right? Could be a PDF, could be an ebook, something like that, right? And then they can kind of go through that ladder of value, right? And they slowly, as they trust you, they begin to buy more. But then at some point, everything that you're offering almost cannot be refused, right? Because you've layered so many aspects to it. So yeah, and I think maybe you want to speak for 1 or 2 minutes on that point, because I think you do that extremely well.
Yeah, I think that I try to put myself in the shoes of other people and also observe the market. And when I look at the market, at least when I was, starting out, there was definitely a lot of heavy push on high tickets. A lot of push on high ticket courses, high ticket coaching, and still there's a lot of coaches out there that do that. And to me personally, I got burned by high ticket, number one. So obviously that leaves a mark to some degree where you don't want to be associated with that. That's number one. But number two, also, you don't want to blend in with the rest of the market. You want to be different. And even when you say, I'm going to give X, Y, Z for free, even when you say that, you still blend in because everybody says that. So why are you different to some degree? And I think that's where it's important to also come up with different ways to communicate those things. So like the lead magnet that did the best for me and always has been is do a free consultation on Zoom. And I feel like that's done really well, purely for the reason that it's probably the hardest one to actually give away for free. Yeah. And not many people would actually want to do that because it's actually really hard. It's, you did a really good diagram earlier with that circle of the time. And frankly, that's probably the most difficult one to give away because you're selling your time. And not only you're not selling your time, you're like, here is my time for free, right?
Yeah.
So it's really, really, really difficult. But when I did my numbers and I looked at my numbers, I figured, yes, I'm selling my time up front, but long term, the relationships I will build, I might not have, millions of people, but I'll have a few hundreds who are just going to be such diehards. I'll be totally set for life, right?
Yeah.
And I felt that from an equation like that, I'd rather make an offer that a few hundreds cannot refuse and will never want to disconnect away, versus have the that revolving door of prospects. Because then it's like I don't want my customers to feel like they're in a washing machine, if that makes sense. So yeah. There you go. That's my spiel on that.
No, thank you for that. Cool. Next hat, the engineer. So when you're wearing the architect hat, again, you're asking what? What should we be working on? What should we be doing? What should our strategy be, right? When we're wearing the engineer hat, we're kind of switching our mindset and looking at how, right? I can't stress this enough. If you're going to be doing things more than once, build an SOP, standard operating procedure, right? And I think people get intimidated about an SOP. They think, oh, standard operating procedure, this is something that is covered in, MBA courses and that kind of stuff, right? It's not for me. I'm just a, I'm just a small company, right? Or even a one-person organization with and with virtual assistants. But no, an SOP is just a high-level set of instructions on how to do things, right? And the great thing about that is that, first of all, writing is the same as thinking, right? So if you write something down, how do I do this, right? And you write it down, you might look at it and go, hey, this is actually pretty stupid. Like the way I'm doing this is not very good, right? So you're then it's gonna trigger some thought processing and say, okay, how can I make this better, right? But the other great thing is that it allows you to hand something over to somebody else and they can also go through that process, right? So you can delegate work, they can look at an SOP, see how something should be done, and then you actually empower that person to potentially improve on that process, right? So yeah, I think if you don't have some sets of kind of standard operating procedures, I think you're really missing out. And I want to just highlight something about standard operating procedures as well. While it can be something as simple as a Word document, and by the way, little sales pitch for Bloo, we're about to launch our wiki feature, which is perfect for SOPs. So each project gets a kind of infinite scroll document that you can use for SOPs. But SOPs do not only have to be written, right? They can also be part of a way that your processes are set. So for instance, in Bloo, you can create a board, you can have different columns, that set your process. That is also a standard operating procedure, right? Because anybody else that joins that project that needs to move work forwards can look at the process of the columns and can clearly understand, what needs to happen, what are the stages, right? Then you can get even more, advanced and start using things like automations and so on, right? But at the very basics is, if anything is going to be done more than once, start by writing it down, right? It will really, really help you. And I think that's the key thing we engineer hat. So you're focusing on how to do things. And again, this sounds complex. It can just be a Word doc to start with. You don't have to get fancy on this stuff. The coach hat. This is
Manny, let me just pause one thing. A couple of things on that. Number one, I urge all my people to use Google Docs just because it's easier to share. So that's my recommendation, number one. But also, we had a really good question from Amy. Is there a structure, a good structure, a structure for a good SOP?
Okay, let me jump out of the presentation for a second. So I think there's for this, there's no hard and fast rules. This is MAD's SOP. It really depends on the kind of business that you're doing. I think initially you can just start writing things down and putting, heading after heading after heading. As you start to collect different steps for different things that you do, I think the categorization will emerge from that, right? I wouldn't spend too much time thinking of getting the perfect kind of categorization up front, right? Just write and then let the categorization emerge from that. Generally speaking, that said, we're really focusing on operations here when we're asking how we're going to work. So you may want to look at, people operations, which is, hiring essentially, right? So then you're always going to have things like onboarding, offboarding, all that kind of stuff, right? Key documents that you can easily reach. Finance is always going to be a big one, right? I think for a lot of internet-based startups, finance is dead easy. You take payments through Stripe or Chargebee or whatever. Money comes in, and it's pretty straightforward, right? However, if you're in professional services where you're invoicing, right, then it's a different ball game, right? Because suddenly you're sending invoices out. There are milestones for projects. You got to keep track of all that. Then you need some kind of standard operating procedures for that as well. But yeah, so that would be my advice in terms of trying to categorize things. I would say don't be too concerned about getting it right up front. Just write, and then the categorization will become more apparent as you go through that process. And by the way, I second that.
Google Docs.
Absolutely, Google Docs. I'm 100%. Of this. I think when I presented at the UN, they used Word, so I changed that to Word. But Google Docs.
By the way,
10 times
you
better.
know how I said that the company, the process.mad.co, I binged that whole library, like a whole bunch of stuff there. It was so helpful. It was just for, some of it wasn't applicable, but just for inspiration, it was really, really good to see. And Amy, you wrote, so I'm imagining spreadsheet and the headers and are the task and out of the columns are the steps. Does that sound like a good starting point? I would say keep it simpler. Open up a Google Doc, type up the steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And don't be concerned about getting it right at all, because, it's a little bit like what I said at the beginning about hiring a VA. When somebody asks me, should I hire a VA? The answer is yes. Hire a VA, even if it's for one task that's going to take them 20 minutes to do. At least you'll get the feel for what that's like. And the same thing with an SOP. Just start and you'll get the feel for it, right? Whatever that repetitive task is. And I think the key here is repetitive, right? That's kind of the key thing. So if you're doing something that's over and over, just like Amy, I know for you specifically, you did podcast editing. If you were to just write a checklist of how you edit your podcast, that'll be a great starting point for specifically that particular task as an example, because it is a repetitive one.
Yeah, and this can go to really the simplest of things. I mean, we've got a pretty large office here, right? And we've got clients coming in. We've got most of my staff, are in their 20s. They're messy, right? So every evening there's, used coffee cups, there's plates in the kitchen, there's, the water in the meeting room here is, it's finished and the glasses are all over the place and so on, right? And even with our cleaning company, we had our own cleaners and stuff. At some point, we just got a cleaning company and we went through with them in the morning one time and wrote a checklist of everything that we want done, how we want it done, right? Now, was that a bit of an effort? Yes. But now every single morning when I come to the office, everything is perfect, exactly reset to how we want it, right? The air conditioning is at the right temperature. There's the right number of glasses, there's the coffee is ready, so on, right? And we've been able to layer that. And again, nothing complex, just a Google document, right? So I really think you can apply that to the smallest of things, really, and it allows you to stop having to think about it, right? It's just there's no mental energy required on that. So the coach. So I want to talk a little bit about, I think, a mistake that some founders make when they're scaling their team a little bit. And I think this probably less applies to hiring virtual assistants, because I think there's more of a transactional nature, right? It tends to be very remote, obviously, right? It tends to, virtual assistants, right? But then I think if you're working with people, in the same location, I think often the question of culture comes up, right? Are you a family? A lot of companies say that, right? Oh yeah, come and join our family. Oh, we're a great family, right? No, right? A company is not a family, right? Because a family gives, essentially, it provides you with acceptance and with love, no matter what, right? So if little Johnny is not behaving at the dinner table, his parents are not going to give him up for adoption, right? At least we hope not, right? But if in a company, if someone doesn't perform for a good period of time, I mean, they likely will get cut, right? And that's a big difference. And I think if one talks about being a family, but then you act like a company should be, right? Where you will occasionally have issues with performance and you have to deal with that, it's going to disappoint people. I think a much, much better analogy is to say a sports team, right? A sports team is absolutely clear, right? You're as good as your last game, right? If you not performing well, you're going to be cut from the main team and put on the bench. And then if you really keep not playing well, eventually you're going to be cut from the team, right? And it's all about getting the best team, right, to win. And I think it doesn't mean to be ruthless. It's just to be upfront of how an organization should work, right? So I think that's an important point to highlight.
Love that.
So with the coach hat, have one-to-ones. They don't have to be every week or anything like that. I think it really depends. If you're just starting out with a new team member, maybe yes, week to week or every couple of weeks, just sit down for 30 minutes or an hour and kind of both of you step back from the work and look at how both of you are working, right? How is the work of the new employee? How's your relationship as a manager and a leader to that employee? And do a sort of abstract critique of that, right? And see what's going on, see what the problems are, discuss what the point of constraint is for that individual, right? What's the main thing they should be working on? As that person gains a history, and maybe you've been working together for a long time, you can do far fewer of these, right? Because you now have a much more intuitive understanding, right? But definitely when you're starting out, have a one-to-one. And I think this can also be important for virtual assistants, because often if you deal with virtual assistants, you're going to have calls. You're always going to be one-to-one, right? So then you might think, oh, why do I need to have a one-to-one anyway? We're always on the phone, right? We're always doing video calls. But actually, the one-to-one is different, right? Because it's a specific meeting about how you work, right? And how to develop the work, right? How to improve. So it's a bit different from just having a call to discuss, a specific work item, right? If you think it's an issue, it is already an issue. And this is, something that is, dealing with people in business is probably the number one kind of headache, right? I mean, it's really rewarding working with great people, but it's also, they're people, right? They're not going to be, 100% all the time. So normally as a leader, I think to myself, if I'm thinking that somebody's got a problem, I've come to the conclusion that it already is a problem, right? So then you need to kind of step in and deal with that, right? And so call out issues as they happen, right? Instead of waiting for 6 months or a year and doing some kind of performance review or something like that, it's much better to say, take 10, 15 minutes to, sit aside and go, hey, I don't think, this is meeting my expectations, or just say, hey, what's up, right? Maybe, they've got some personal issues that they're working out, something like that. And then you can work through that. You can say, okay, do you need time off, or do you need somebody else to cover, or so on, right? So I think it's really important to have that human approach to this kind of stuff, right? And also one of my favorite questions is to ask people what they're reading right now, right? If they're saying nothing, it's normally a red flag. You do want to, I think the best quality people I've ever hired have always been people who read, right? You can't probably see that in our office. Maybe I'll give a brief tour in a little bit, but we've got a big library here at the office, probably 250, 300 books, because I think we're all really passionate readers, right? And that kind of links to being curious and having that learning hat, right? And you want to encourage that in your people, right? And that's also a great question to ask during the hiring process as well, right? That gives you a lot of insight into people. And then the final hat, the player. So normally the reason why you're starting a business is that you can do something very well already, right? You're a great individual performer, right? So, the reason I started Mad, I used to be a freelancer, right? I was doing design work, I was doing websites, I was helping customers with their business problems, right? And then I scaled up my team, right? So with that, there's sometimes a tendency for leaders, because they're great individual performers, to jump in and always help out and micromanage the work of their team, who maybe are not able to do quite the same level of work as the leader can. That's a mistake, really. I think this hat, when a leader jumps in and does the work itself, should be used very sparingly. And it's really, the advantages are a way to gain insight into the work, develop empathy with people that are doing the work, right? Understand, potentially how it could be improved, right? But really, you do want to sort of step back and really use this quite sparingly. It can also be used in an emergency, right? Somebody's absent, somebody's got a large workload, you can jump in, it's a tight deadline, you can jump in and do that. But if you're repeatedly doing this, there's probably a problem, right? So don't overuse this to cover for underperforming teams, right? Mm-hmm. It's something that should be used very sparingly. Because if you're constantly jumping in and doing the work for somebody, you're also removing the ability for them to upskill, right? Because something that's not a problem for you, you can do in 3 minutes. They might take 30 minutes or an hour, right? Because it's new to them. But if you need to give them that time, because that time is not only important to accomplish the task in the short term, it's important for them to develop as people, right? And as team members, right? As valuable team members. And if you don't give them the time to do that, they'll always be stuck at that same level, right? So it is important to do that. And it can be sometimes incredibly frustrating, right? Like it happens to me a lot. I'll walk past one of the iMacs here and I'll see something on a screen that I just know is not quite right. And I have to resist the urge to instantly jump on there and fix it and say, oh, this isn't this, right? No, I've got to let people solve their own problems, right? So yeah, I think that's, so this is a very powerful hat, but also a very dangerous one. You don't want to be using it all the time. All right, so let me give a quick summary, because there's been a lot here, and I guess maybe then we can take some questions on that. So point one, there is always too much to do, and I think the only time your to-do list will end is when you die, right? But before then, you're always going to be too busy. The point of constraint is whatever is stopping the organization from moving forwards, right? So that's really important. So leaders should be working at the point of constraint as much as possible. Do not spread your time evenly around all your stakeholders, right? You need to get comfortable telling people, sorry, no, I'm busy, right? I can't do that right now, right? Or it's not important, right? It's not a priority. Discover those key issues, right? Those points of constraints, fix those in a permanent matter, write those down, write those SOPs, hand over the responsibility to somebody else, right? Repeat, move on to the next thing, fix the issue in a permanent manner, hand over responsibility to somebody else, repeat, right? That's how you build a high quality team, scalable processes, and how you start to run a business, not, an extension of your own work, right? And last but not least, and in fact, perhaps the most important point, have fun, right? If you're doing a startup, you're going to spend a lot of time at work, right? If you're not having fun, then what's the point, right? Like, I really don't believe one should be doing things just for the money, right? Or anything like that. I think money is a byproduct of doing good things, right? Of adding value to society and to people. I think it's much more important to focusing on enjoying the process, enjoying working with real human beings, with staff, with stakeholders, with clients, right? And just being a great human being, right? And then from that, I think everything else kind of flows naturally. So yeah, thank you. I think there's been a lot in this presentation, so I'm happy to answer any questions, backtrack on some points, and provide clarity. All right.
Amazing. Hillary said, this is absolutely incredible content, practical for so many of us entrepreneurs. Amy said, thank you so much for all this business coaching. I appreciate the value of your valuable advice. I will watch the replay for sure, even though I've been here the whole time. This presentation is so much more than why and how to have a project management system. I've just registered for Bloo. Awesome. Yeah, I think this is really good. I'm going to give one takeaway here that I think it's probably an unnoticed takeaway. Forget about how good the presentation was in terms of the value and the content and the valuable information. I want you to observe just for a moment how simple this presentation was. This was just literally text on bullet points, moving slowly. And there was no fancy graphics. There was no Canva slides made into, spending hours to pretty it up. It was literally just, here is some punctual, organized information that can be shared to add value to someone's life over, a 45 minutes presentation, so they can be a better business owner, better entrepreneur, and so on and so forth. Nothing fancy. And I think this is where also putting the effort on the really important stuff, right? It's so huge, right? So huge to observe that. I think it's just, for me, that's a huge takeaway as well. Because I'm like, I've got, instead of spending too much time on printing things up, this is just such good quality presentation. And I think, this is awesome. So anyway, just a little takeaway from me as well.
Yeah, I'll send the link to Aaron. You can share with your
we'll include it for the VIPs, and
there is also on my blog. There is also an entire essay specifically linked to what I spoke today. So if people want to also essentially read more,
love that.
There's the entire essay here. So I'll send it across, or Sarah can ping that to you. So prioritization for leaders. Because I think if sometimes it's also good. Some people learn more by reading than listening. So yeah, I think that's.
So Cheryl said this presentation had so much valuable information. Thank you. Hillary said, keep it simple, move slowly, build on concepts. I could almost cry with joy and gratitude. Thank you. Subscribing to Bloo. Awesome. Remy said, Manny in Iran. Maybe I missed it, so please excuse me, but what each of you are reading right now?
Great question. So I am reading a few interesting books. One of them is called Working. Literally, the title is called Working. And essentially, it's a series of interviews done in the 1970s of this journalist, an author who kind of wandered around America, just speaking to people about how they feel about their work. And he spoke to sort of industrial steel workers, to executives, to 14-year-old paper boys, really a wide variety of individuals. And the interviews are interesting because he really does let people talk. And while they start on the kind of routine things, like, you enjoy your job and so on, they really then move towards some of the trends that were starting back then in the 70s, especially people beginning to wonder how technology was going to impact their work, right? And if they would have a job in the future. And then we've now been able, 50 years later, to see these trends play out fully. So yeah, really an amazing book. Let me just pull up who the author is, but yeah, it's and for a book that's written 50 years ago on work, you might think, oh, it's not that relevant to today, but actually, yeah, really fantastic. It's by a guy called Studs Terkel, Terkel. So yeah, so that's really a good book. And then another fantastic book I just recently finished is The History of the Pentagon, which is the building where the headquarters of the Defense Department in the US. But it's not the history of the Defense Department, it's the history of the building itself, right? And it's one of the largest office buildings in the world. At the time it was built, in 1941, 1942, it was the largest office building. And they built it in, I think by the time, essentially they started designing on a Friday, they finished the concept on a Monday, it was approved 2 months later, and 9 months later, the first office staff were moving in, right? And it's a great history of project management, of collaboration, of the fights that people were having on how to structure this massive and expensive undertaking. Nothing like this had been done before, right? And at some point, 15,000 people were working on this project, right? So I think it's just an amazing tale of kind of project management. And then, obviously, we know what happened on September 11th, 2001. A plane did hit the Pentagon, and there's the last part of the book deals with that. And interestingly, they set themselves this. We spoke about goals earlier, right? And how they can be useful. Well, they set themselves a goal that September, after that terrorist attack, that they were going to have a ceremony 1 year from then, on September 11th, 2002, and that the whole Pentagon was going to be, the whole area that had suffered the terrorist attack was going to be already rebuilt and people working there. And a year later, they'd already done that. They'd finished it, right? Which is something that probably should have taken 2 or 3 years, right? But everybody got inspired by that mission and actually completed the work way ahead of time. So yeah, 2 fantastic books, Working and The History of the Pentagon.
Very cool. Very cool. I just finished this one, Evergreen Affiliate Marketing, the one that I just finished. And the one I'm currently reading is actually this one, which is kind of a big book. It's called The Art of Visual Note-Taking, which is all about how to basically take notes and do sketches to visually communicate different concepts, basically. So it's got a whole bunch of practicals and how to, stuff like that. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. That's the one that I'm on. So, and then I don't know if you can see, I'll kind of remove Manny for 1 second from the screen. And then I don't know if you can see, but I've got all my books over here. That's, I do like my books. So there you go. But yeah, I think it's a very, very good point to do that. So when do I have time to read? I mean, I make time, to be honest. I would just take a break and go to a coffee shop and just read for a few hours, to be honest. So I've got a coffee shop downstairs. I'll literally just take a book and just not take my computer, go for a coffee, and then just read. So I think making time to read is really important, especially, making time for it. Yeah.
It's the return on investment is huge. If you're too busy to read, you probably should be reading, right?
Yeah. I think it's really just something you just got to schedule in. You really just have to, if there's not one time in a week where I'm like freaking hell, I haven't read anything in a week. I'll just I'm just going to go downstairs and just read for a few hours. I think you just have to, or, it's a habit, I think.
Yeah. And I think time, I think everybody has some time, right? And I think it's just about priorities, right? I mean, often, you might be tired and then you chill and you're watching Netflix or whatever, right? I mean, that's 2 hours, right? If you don't have the mental energy to read something heavy, read something light, right? But at least get that practice in of being able to focus on something, especially because watching TV and series, it's very passive, right? Well, I think when you're reading something, you really have to engage with the material, right? You have to use your imagination. You have to understand the concepts, and it kind of trains the brain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also there is other methods of reading. Like you don't have to physically read. You can listen to an audiobook, go for a walk, listen to an audiobook. Nothing wrong with that. I used to do that a lot, you know. In other ways, there's also a lot of companies now that summarize books into animated videos or, you know, short book summaries, you know, and it's not that I'm not a fan of those because I feel that they're going to basically have their own realizations on what they feel is important. Whereas if I read the entire book, I might find a different golden nugget that to me makes a bigger difference in my life. And I missed on it because of a summary. And I experienced it when I listened to a few book summaries of books I've already read. And I was like, the summaries, they missed what I got out of it, what was the most important for me. So I'm not a huge fan, but I feel that that's also something that's a good way to just get into the habit of reading maybe bigger books. If you don't like the books, the big books anyway, maybe the summaries are a good startup anyway. So anyway, that's the answer to that one. Demetrius said, thank you for so much your valuable time and valuable advice. Remy said, and all that pre-Bloo. Yes. Awesome. Yeah. Great presentation. Yeah. If anybody has any other questions, definitely let us know. This one a bit longer than expected, but you got a bit of a double whammy. You got me for the first hour, you know. I love what Hillary said. She said, keep it simple, move slowly, build on concepts. I could almost cry. And I said, when I read the move slowly, I was like, God, no, not for me. You got my improvised webinar in the beginning, you know, going 100 miles an hour, but that's just that's just me. But yeah, no, I really appreciate everybody's engagement and questions and all that stuff. And yeah, if you have any other questions, just let me know. Again, you could just go to the Bloo website, bloo.cc/Iran, sign up for a free trial. If you like it, use that coupon Iran for the annual plan. If you use the annual plan, I'll give you access to my video tutorials as well. So $100 a year. I mean, it's pretty good. So it's cheaper than what I'm paying.
Yeah.
I'm on the white label plan, so.
Yeah, I think. Also, I think to highlight, I think we've had the same pricing for probably over 4 years now, and I think probably the start of 2023 is where we're going to be, updating the pricing. Probably beginning to split out into some different tiers. So I think, it's definitely a great, you get a great deal now, basically, if you purchase that. Because I think, because some of the tiers will probably be, $100 a month in some cases, right? For a lot of the features that are coming out, but then with the current plan, you'll get all that, right? So it's,
Yeah, absolutely. In the presentation style, yes, no-brainer pricing, absolutely. And I love the fact that, let's put it that way, I love the fact that you are a solopreneur / transition to an entrepreneur and business owner, which is what pretty much everybody listen to this, that's what we are, really. So, and you created Bloo to run your own company, to solve your own problem. And that's where I feel that's where I also feel that it didn't, with the enterprise businesses, the bigger companies, they're VC backed. It's not that, I mean, maybe they are solving their own problem in some way, but they're built for enterprise. They're not built for us in some ways.
I mean, take a look at Asana or Monday or whatever, right? These companies have, I think Asana has like 2,000 people working for them, right? What the hell do they know about small businesses, right? Like, nothing, right? I mean, they don't understand. And I mean, look, with my work at MAD, I've worked with a lot of large companies, and I would say it's almost easier to run a big company than to run a small one, because at that point, money stops being a problem, right? So you can throw money at problems, and you can you have a lot more resources, right? So it's really about the strategy. But when you're a small business, the financial side is super important, right?
Yeah.
Because it will impact you personally, right? If you don't close a client, if you don't, watch your finances, you're not getting paid that month, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's so there's a lot more pressure on for small businesses, and you've got a lot less time, right? So time to train and learn new systems. Ideally, you want to cut that to the minimum possible, right? And every system will have a bit of onboarding, right? It's not going to be 100% intuitive, but if it can be simple and straightforward, then great, right?
Yeah, totally. Amy said, "Thank you for your generosity," and Hillary said, "Manny, you're a CEO to watch in tech." Hillary, just to point on that, when I binge read the Mad website. It was just so good to watch. I was like, this is like all the SOPs and everything, and because that's how I learn. I just like to watch, and in some cases, you have to with a lot of people, a lot of companies, you have to try to find the loopholes to find out what they do behind the scenes. But with Mad, it was like, here's all the recipes, it was just all there, which I really enjoyed, and it was very, very helpful. I got a lot of inspiration from it. So, yeah. And you're no longer with Mad. You've hired a CEO. You've got a CEO running everything.
Yeah. I mean, let's. In fact, it's worth talking about that because that's the next level of delegation. So yeah. I had an agency before Mad for a couple of years. Then I've had Mad for just over 6 years now. And I stepped down as of July. So essentially somebody else is running the company, right? And it was a extremely interesting handover, so things that I've been doing for years, right? And in some cases I hadn't written down, right? I had to suddenly make it very easy, very clear for somebody else to understand and take over and run the company, in a way that, I hope that continues the kind of tradition that we've built over time. And so far, I think it's been very smooth. I mean, I think August was our second best month on record in 6 years. And, I'm not directly running things, right? So it's definitely an interesting experiment. That, eventually, you can go that you can take delegation far enough where you actually don't even work in the business anymore. So I think that's very interesting. So yeah, my focus now is on Bloo and really, So I think we'll be seeing a lot of exciting updates there. We're actively hiring and scaling on that, so it's should be
very cool. Very cool. We had two CEOs today. We had we had the CEO of Simple Booklet, and such good, so much value from you, because you two are extremely hands-on CEOs of software companies, and really, really fascinating to listen to and all that stuff. So really good. Hans said, a fire hose of information to digest. Thanks for all your insight and generosity to share with us. Much success moving forward. Hillary said, I already posted a pro on my Facebook page. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. If anybody wants to stick around, I'm going to do the $100 giveaway. If you want to be part of that, I'm happy to. I haven't done that for 2 sessions. I'm going to do it twice to give 2 people $100. So if you want to stick around for that, I'm going to do that. Besides that, thanks a lot, Manny. I really appreciate your presentation. Freaking awesome. Love it. Definitely would love a copy so we can include it for the VIPs and access people as well. And obviously, I'll have my VA watch the presentation, also summarize it, create chapters, because it's going to be very well chaptered content as well. So I think it's going to be a lot of value to go through. And the transcription from it will be really valuable to even read through and so on. So yeah, little housekeeping, just to recap again, tomorrow, 12 noon US Eastern, we have a networking event. Okay, come and leverage all the money I spent on Facebook ads and all the audience that I've built, and come and make friends, make connections and all that. So that's going to be tomorrow. And then at 6 p.m., 6 hours later, we're going to have a magic show. So you're all welcome to come as well. If you want to bring your people from Mad and Bloo, if they want to come, you're absolutely welcome. We'll do a magic show. I've got capacity of 500 people able to attend. So,
Oh, wow.
you know, yeah, so we'll see how many people it's going to be, but yeah, it's going to be awesome. So we did it Christmas last year for all my members, and it was awesome. I mean, I met people's parents and kids and nieces and aunts and uncles and whatever. It was great. So anyway, it's going to be like probably half an hour, 45 minutes, and it's going to be a really cool magic show. So there we go. So that's tomorrow, 12 noon US, and then 6 p.m. is the magic show tomorrow. So cool. Awesome. Remy said, thank you, Manny. Great session. I appreciate your transparency with all materials. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I'm going to share my screen and do the little spin the wheel, spin the wheel thingy. I'm getting bugged by people who want to win some money, you know? So I'm going to do that twice, and let's see who's going to win that. Give me 1 second. We have a Joseph winner. I'll have to see if this is a real person. Let me just make sure. We have a Joseph. This is a problem. We have 2 Josephs. All right. Well, 2 Josephs. I'll give you both. There you go. Instead of spinning it again, I'll give 2 Josephs. I forgot 2 Josephs on the list, so there you go. And then also, I want to announce the winner of the predict game. So I did a game. I don't know if you knew this, but I did a game where basically people had to guess how many registrations there are going to be. And I said, whoever gets the right number, I'll just pay them. So there are 2 winners who were 3 numbers away from how many they were. One of them is Cindy Burns, actually. So congratulations, Cindy. You're winner number 1. And winner number 2 is, let me just grab it. Hang on. Camila. I don't know who you are, but congratulations. So those are the 2 winners, Cindy and Camila. So I'll PayPal you both $125 each. And yeah, you just gotta let me know your PayPal. So there you go. Cool. That's about it. I'll wrap up now. I'll see you all at 12 noon tomorrow and 6 p.m. tomorrow, and we'll have a good time. Thanks all for tuning in, and I'll speak to you soon.